Welcome to Let Him Cook. It is Thanksgiving morning, Nigel. Fresh off the heels of Blackout Wednesday, right in the midst of Feast Week. A great time to be a college basketball fan. Man, what a tournament in Maui, and we will dive into that. Recaps of all three games. But first, Nigel, what are we thankful for this beautiful Thanksgiving morning?
Man, there's too much to put in a podcast, but I think as of recent, obviously thankful for my family, thankful for guys like you who I can talk ball with, and we can just start throwing random NBA role players from the 2010s out to each other, and we just understand, because I can't do that with every friend. That's unique.
That's a great hobby, by the way. That is one of my favorite things to do.
It's one of the best pastimes I've had in my life. But definitely just friends. This podcast, our fans, I'm thankful for. Also, too, just got a new job. Thankful for my coworkers. Thankful for the meal I'm about to have this afternoon. So there's a lot to be thankful for. I'm also thankful in retrospect, and I hope we can like kind of tally into this later on. But I'm also thankful for Maui, because at the end of the day, it did us more better than it did us harm. So what are you thankful for, Del?
A lot of the same things: family, friends, work, roof over my head, the obvious stuff. Thankful for some great day in basketball. And college basketball gets a lot of flack because like the actual opening week of basketball is usually pretty weak.
Yeah.
But if you get 2-3 weeks in and you get to Feast Week and you're seeing these like Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four matchups in November, there's not much better than just 10 games with top 25 teams for like 5 days in a row. It rocks. It's a great time for college basketball. Hoop heads. Nigel, I was thankful for a little St. Louis UMass Lowell yesterday. Not sure if you caught that
this one. This is the problem with you, man. You be out here watching these gambler games, okay?
I don't gamble. I don't.
That's my point. But you watch games as if you have a 27-leg parlay, and you got to cut it out, man. It's getting to it's a problem. It's a problem.
UMass Lowell went into the Billikens home arena. The Riverhawks had them on the ropes. There was a game-tying three that would have sent it into overtime. They went to review it, and the ball is still in his hand with like a 0.2 after the buzzer went off. They called it off. The Riverhawks go home heartbroken. But first, let's dive in. We're going to start on Monday, Nigel. We're going to talk about Iowa State Auburn, which I think was – go ahead.
Before we get into Iowa State, I do want to acknowledge, like Dylan mentioned, yesterday was Blackout Wednesday. So the reason for the shades is I'm slightly hungover, but I pushed through for you guys. So I just wanted to. I didn't want to be like, oh, he's uppity now. He thinks he's a big shot. No, I want to push through for the people, right? So let's get.
You got a little Nigel flu game. He was out in the clubs in Salt Lake City last night, and
we're still gonna drop 38 though. We're still gonna drop 40. It's okay.
My reason for being extremely tired is I stayed up for UConn Dayton, which ended around 2 a.m. local time. So, just doing it for the love of the game out here, Nigel. All right. Auburn, Iowa State, I think it was the championship of the tournament. It's a shame. I would love to know when they make the bracket, because going into the tournament, I think it was clear that Auburn and Iowa State were, if not the two best teams, two of the three best teams. We realized UConn is probably not one of the best three teams post-Maui, but this was a great game. I want to start here, Nigel. There was a lot of Iowa State fans just kind of going through it on Twitter. There was quite a bit of a meltdown. And do you think, in retrospect, always 2020, do you think the meltdown was worth it for the game?
Again, I'm a very emotional person. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. So I understand anyone who had some like over exaggerations come Monday, because I was one of them. I went to bed very mad. I was mad at more of the fact of not the fact that we lost. I was more mad at the fact of like we were up 18 And then regardless of opponent, that's been a recurring theme year in and year out that has been with TJ and his staff. We cannot hold on to the 20-point leads. Like, I understand blowing a 5-point lead. That's not a real big swing. But 18 points, that's a meltdown, you know? And I get it. Like, Auburn, they're a great team. Maui's a shooter-friendly gym with high school-level soft rims. So it got to a point where they were just throwing shit up and it was going in. But nonetheless, I don't think the overreaction, it was crazy at the time. I think now there's a lot of things. Now that we see how every team did, we can look at it with, you know, better perspective of like, okay, this wasn't that bad. But in the moment, no, I don't think the over-exaggeration was that bad because of the meltdown, but also because here's my problem with Iowa State fans too, is we tend to get a little just too happy that we're just at the prom, we're at the dance, right? But we want to take home prom king. We want to take home the goods. We don't want to just show up. Okay, that's not what we go to Maui. I'm not gonna lie. When I was a manager back in 2021, I knew we were going to Maui, like back then. So it's like we can prepare for this. We can recruit for this. It was now with the transfer portal, especially, but we kind of knew what was coming to this, despite of the opponent. But nonetheless, no, I don't think the over exaggeration in the moment, I don't think was out of pocket. I just think now that it's over, I think we can look at it with a better perspective.
I think you nailed it. It's the way we lost that game that I think caused you got to be kidding me. I'm fully comfortable in saying Auburn is the best college basketball team in the country right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say Kansas has beaten every good team they've played. I just think Auburn is really operating on a different level. They're so good on defense. They are so deep. They have great athletes everywhere. They're loaded. Mm-hmm. But like you said, the other thing too is on paper, you look at how, you know, TJ's teams play and, you know, stifling defense. We are going to run shot clock on offense. We're not going to go for the first shot. We're going to go through multiple actions before we, you know, put up a shot usually, unless it's transition. So what do you think it is? Do you think the players know? I mean, they obviously know that we are susceptible to losing leads. What is it about this team? Do we take the foot off the gas? Like, what is there a trend, I guess, in Iowa State on why we are losing these leads?
Yeah, it's the stagnantness that we talk about in the shit games at the beginning of the year. It translates to the big games, and essentially where it can get stagnant and things are okay in a game against a lower Division I team, it's not going to fly against Auburn. Like, you have to stay consistent throughout the entire game. And something we have to just get better at is playing with a lead. Like, after you play with a lead, let's not get repetitive with our sets on offense. Let's not get repetitive with our any type of action, short action we do. It's got to be kind of tossing all your tools, you know, out of the toolbox in a game like that, because that's going to be one of the most talented teams you see. So you might as well throw everything you got at them. Like, I understand people want to keep stuff in their back pocket for games down the line, but when you sign up for a game on Feast Week that is a Final Four potential matchup, like, you have to kind of just play like it's the Final Four, like there's nothing to lose. Now, again, I think just the big problem is just lack of offensive consistency. And then also, I don't know what happened. Well, I kind of know what happened thanks to our friend Jake Bren, but Iowa State can't shoot this year. Like, it's bad. Our guards cannot shoot the basketball. There's our Taman and Keshon, I believe, are shooting around 20% from the 3-point line. Yeah. And Taman has an excuse. Thanks again. Shout out to Jake Bren for this info. But Taman hurt his shoulder last week in practice. So that makes a lot more sense. But Keshon, who's kind of the motor of this team this year, he can't hit the side of a barn if he wanted to. I mean, half the time. Like, it's just the lack of consistency shooting the ball from our guards outside of Curtis has been very bad. So I think once you gain a lead, when you have guards that can't shoot, it's like, all right, it's like we've built up the confidence with an 18-point lead. All right, maybe we can shoot, and then you can potentially, because you can't shoot yourself out of a game. And I think that's kind of what happened. Also, too, I just feel like we're still very new together. and that was a great test. I'm glad we didn't fail the test that bad. I thought it was going to be a lot a lot worse than it actually was. But again, to lose on a tip-in to arguably the best team in the country, like I can't be with perspective, with a few days under my belt, I cannot be that mad, especially seeing how a few other teams finished in Maui. But we'll get to that later.
Right. And the bright side of Auburn is that first half. That first half against Auburn might be the best 20 minutes of Cyclone basketball I've ever watched. We looked all the part of a Final Four team. We had everything going. It seemed like everybody was on. It seemed like everybody was having a good night. Keshon was driving to the rim with success. You had Momcilovic hunting mid-range. Curtis was on from three. Deshaun Jackson was getting what he wanted in the post and holding his own in the first half against Janai Broome, who is, I think, the front runner for National Player of the Year at this point. So
He's
that
overrated.
first
overrated.
half was just Broome?
Yeah, I said it. You heard it. He's overrated.
Dog.
He's overrated.
He had 21 and 10 against us.
I understand, but
he had 25 and 16 in the championship.
I understand his stats, but like you never feel him, so it's like I don't know, man. He's sus. He's sus.
I gotta disagree. I think he's the best two-way player in college basketball, and I don't think it's close right now.
I think when it comes to Auburn, they're so well-rounded that I'll put it this way. I don't think he beat us like with the tip-in on Monday, but I don't think he's Auburn's best player. I think their best player is Chad. We
got to talk about Chad. Nigel, I hate this man. He is full Nickelodeon villain, cartoon looking. I hate everything about him. He totally faked an injury, which is just corny as hell. And there's just something about him. He did the same thing against, who did they play in the second round? North Carolina. Jumped like over the scorer's table and then like was holding his knee for 5 minutes, goes back to the locker room and he's back on the court within like 30 seconds. I'm like, dude, just a attention seeker. I hate everything about him. Great player, basketball wise, would just not want him anywhere on my team.
Yeah, the people, here's the problem with Auburn. The people who I was afraid of, and again, the game where I struck fear was when they played Houston, obviously, earlier in the season. But the people who I was like, we got to contain, we also just did not contain. Yeah. Pettiford, 14 points off the bench, 40% from three. Kelly didn't shoot that well from three, but still had an amazing impact on the game, hit big shots. Like he is arguably the best shooter in the country this year. Like I don't know if he was in the transfer portal, but wish TJ would have caught up on that guy because we definitely need that. But yeah, Baker Mazara, dude, faking an injury. I agree with you. It's completely corny. But at the end of the day, 5 of 8 from the field, 3 of 4 from three. Like, dude was electric. And then the 4-point play, like you might as well have just stabbed me in the face over and over and over again. The way my stomach dropped, like I was on a roller coaster, dude. That was the most like gut-wrenching play I've maybe seen in my life. That was crazy. And then it was right in front of the Auburn bench. There is nothing more I hate than seeing an opposing team's bench go ballistic because they just did something crazy to your team. There's nothing I hate more in this world. So I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Auburn's best guys, like, yeah, Broome had a great game, 21 and 10. Wah. He's still fat and chubby, and I don't like him. I think Chad Baker Mazara is their best player. And had he actually gotten hurt, I don't think they win that game.
Yeah, I mean, he had, I think, 2 points in the first half and then 16 in the second, I want to say.
Yeah.
And just looked like a completely different player in the second half. You brought up Keshon. I think that 4-point play was his third foul. I really think, that was a huge momentum shifting 4-point play. I think it made it a 1-possession game at that point. And then his fourth foul, I think he just got a little too amped up, tried to he dove on the floor going for a steal. They called him for a reach. And then he sat on the bench for the next 6 minutes. And Keshon was really the motor that game and really the whole tournament. But I think you saw that span with him on the bench we just didn't have the same firepower to really keep up with Auburn. And I don't think that's like a unique problem for Iowa State. I think a lot of teams that play Auburn are going to realize we just don't have the dudes to keep up, especially if one of your guys doesn't in foul trouble, because they have like 6 or 7 guys that can really go. So if you're down one for extended period of time with foul trouble, it is really tough to keep up with how good they're on offense, how good they're on defense. It sucks. You're right. If you're up 18, you got to win that game. I don't care if you're playing the best college basketball team of all time. You have grown that lead. You just have to stay on top of it. But if there is one team to lose to in Maui, I think it's Auburn. Like, that is the one team where you can say, you know what? They're a really good basketball team. I think we learned a lot in that game, and you move on to the next 2 games.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I think I came into the tournament thinking with such a point A to point B mindset of like, we're going to go play at Auburn, shock the world, beat North Carolina, make my heart happy. And then we're going to go beat UConn and make Dan Hurley cry.
Yeah.
But none of that happened. And that's okay. I think that like there's so much better that came out of this result. I thought any situation where we go into the losers bracket first round was worst case scenario. And like, I didn't even want to entertain that idea. But again, like, this is something where it felt so traumatic in the moment. And 2 days later, I genuinely can say this with confidence. I don't think it'll hurt us at all. Like, we might actually benefit from it because a certain team up north, up in Connecticut, pissed down their leg the entire week. So shout out to them. Get well soon.
One last thing about Auburn that I want to ask you about, Nigel. That last play where Keshon tries to break a double team and split it.
Yes.
If you, Cyclone Larry, kind of screenshotted it as he's breaking through that double team and ultimately turns the ball over, if he would have made it, you have Janai Broom under the rim and then Joshua Jefferson in the corner. I don't know if I love either option. And I think that play was to get a high ball screen and to get Keshon going downhill, which is, I think, perfect. I mean, you put the ball in your best player's hands at that point in the game. Do you know or do you understand why Milan Momcilovic, probably our best finisher last year as a freshman, isn't on the court in the final sequence of that game?
I think because there was a period of time where it was too neck and neck to where, like, I don't necessarily think TJ and his staff felt confident in calling a timeout and him being out there and then him being the weak link. There were times in the game where Milan is very, like, I understand what he brings offensively, but Colorado's coach kind of specified it best. I love, first of all, I love Maui because they give us little huddle insights of what coaches are actually saying to their players. So, but it made me think about our own team. It made me do a bit of self-reflection yesterday when he said we're very slow-footed. And that's very true. You get guys like Chatfield and Milan out there, rotations get finicky. They're not consistent. They're not aggressive closeouts. Milan sometimes he's guarding Pettiford with his hands in his pockets. So it's like, yeah, bro, you're a liability at times. And I'm sorry, but being a sophomore in TJ's program, like, it gets a bit much where, like, we can't have that out there. You lose rapport with your head coach to where a big moment where, your team might need you. Now you're not out there because you're a liability on defense. So to answer your question, I think the reason why Milan was not there was because he was lollygagging on possessions that he maybe not thought were that important, but every possession in that game is important. So, and as you can tell, all the way to the last second, I couldn't make a truer statement. Like, in a game that results in that, every possession mattered. So that's the problem too, is like, I think too, when it comes to leads that we get, our guys just get a little too comfortable. Yeah. It's like, dude, we're not, you always, even when you are one of the best Cyclone teams of this decade, arguably, and one of the best Cyclone teams maybe in the last 15 years, like, you still have to act until the final buzzer as if you're not that good. Like, you have to play as if we still got Gabe Kalsher, Isaiah Brockington, and the 2022 Cyclone team out there who held Wisconsin to like 55 points. You have to carry yourself with still the underdog mentality. Because that's something else that I've realized we cannot do is when we have expectations, we cannot meet them for whatever reason. It gets a bit harder. I feel like with that type of pressure, when we're the underdog, people better watch out. Yep. It's going to be a problem. Like, I think that's the best time where we can really get at people. But again, I got sidetracked. To answer your question, I think the reason why Milan wasn't out there was just due to the fact that he's a defensive liability.
And I'm pretty sure it was the Auburn game. I'll probably rewatch that Auburn game because I'm a masochist and I just want to feel something, and it'll be pain and sorrow. But I'm pretty sure that was the game where we had one timeout left with 12 minutes left in the game. It was either them or Dayton. But
yeah.
And so, a lot of college coaches, and especially in the NBA, they go offense or defense. They'll call a timeout or any dead ball, and they'll just put in their good offensive players, take out their good defensive players, and they do it kind of every time the ball changes hands in the late game. And I think that is something that TJ would have liked to do if he would have had the timeouts to be able to do it. But man, yeah, it felt like such a winnable game. Even the putback, you have Joshua Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson just right under the rim. If they just box out, maybe you get a foul call on Broom. But that was tough. That's a tough way to lose a game. And the second half, just a total tale of two halves. It's a cliche, but that is exactly what that game was. You ready to move on to Dayton?
Yeah, it is what it is, guys. Auburn's good. Yeah, we move on. We'll be back. Don't worry.
And so North Carolina played Dayton following the Iowa State-Auburn game, and a lot of that game, it looked like, hey, we're going to play North Carolina in the loser bracket, and now we have a chance for a top 10 win. Same script, almost. The script writers got lazy, Nigel, because Dayton got off to this huge lead. North Carolina storms back, ultimately won the game. And Dayton, who's up to 25 in KenPom, I really think probably going to be the best team in their conference this year. A lot of good guard play. Malachi Smith for Dayton had the game of his life against us. Enoch Cheeks, who is 6'1", 6'2", but is just compact built, kind of like Taman Lipsey, just a linebacker out there. Led his team in rebounds against us. And then they had that French dude who was just had vision out the window. Was just finding every hole in the defense to get passes through. So that's a talented team in Dayton.
Let's not forget too, Nate Santos.
Yeah, your boy. Talk about the connection there. I was unaware of this.
Yeah, no, as I said in the last episode, so I played Nate Santos a handful of times in my early years of high school. He's a year younger than me, but I shit you not, the same size he is now. He was that size as a freshman. And he had a bag. I had never seen a 6'7" kid. Put it this way: in Illinois high school basketball, if you're 6'7", your coach is putting you down in the post, like most high school programs will. But this kid was taking the ball up, has he pull up mid range. I was like, dog. I was like, is this kid Hawaiian? I don't even know who are you? What? I've never seen anything like this. It was hell trying to guard that kid. I never wanted to get on a mismatch, but at times, because I'm a littler guy, I found myself in that predicament, and it was not fun. So it is always lighthearted and fun when you see some Illinois guys really, take it to the next level in college and be like, all right, I wasn't trash. She's just really good. You know what I mean?
A little background info on Santos. I don't remember if I said this in the pod last week or not, but he was on the Pittsburgh team that we lost to in the first round a couple years back. Didn't play much on that Pittsburgh team, but he was on the bench. He saw it live. So familiar with this Iowa State team, at least. I think this has to go down as the Keshon Gilbert game. I really think the whole week in Maui, Keshon just was on a different level. He was operating at a first team all Big 12, just had he had something in his eyes. He looked like a killer out there. And then, I'm just going to talk about it because I think it's the crucial point of this basketball game. Zeb Key comes down and just elbows the shit out of Keshon Gilbert's nose. I think it was a flagrant one for sure. I could see an argument for it being a flagrant 2. Zeb Key, to his credit, did come back and was like, hey, man, that's my bad, before Keshon hit the free throws. I also want to shout out Otts, because as soon as it happened, TJ went out there and calmed Keshon down and was like, hey, you got to keep a level head. We have 2 huge free throws coming up, and you got to make them. And I think that's so important to corral Keshon, because the player he is and the guy he is, I know he was amped up after that. I know his adrenaline was going after that, and hit 2 of the biggest free throws of the season so far. And then when we got the possession, he made the layup and basically gave us a 4-point play the old-fashioned way. So shout out to Keshon, because that was an incredible turn of events in the last minute of the second half there.
Yeah, no, and to your point, I want to make a few points about Keshon. First of all, free throw merchant. 12 of 14, dog. Can you do that every game?
Right.
He had 24 without attempting a 3-pointer. That's your game. And I also forgot to mention this. There were moments in the Auburn game where it looked like Keshon was floating through transition. That is the offense. And everyone else just corner up, Deshaun trail or Deshaun rim run. That is the offense. If we are locked in and aggressive, we can play so fast this year. It's not even funny. It can get spooky. So I just wanted to put that out there. You brought up the big free throws. Keshon was big from the free throw line all game. 12 of 14 is crazy. And that's got to definitely be something that I would like to see moving forward, is just him getting to the line. And you're consistent. Knock him down. You're not Rob Jones. You're Keshon Gilbert. You're Keshon Gilbert. Act like it. Get to the line. All right? But also, when Zedkey did hit Keshon and he drew blood. First of all, if you draw blood in a basketball game, flagrant 2. I think you're out. If Hunter Dickinson got kicked out for kicking Malik Brown in the face, knocking off his headband, if that's a flagrant 2, if you draw blood, that's a flagrant 2. I think Zedkey should have been kicked out of the game. Nonetheless, though, when I saw, you mentioned TJ tried to corral Keshon, just try to calm him down in the heat of the moment. I totally get that. But also, you saw TJ. That's how much of a sicko he is. He saw the blood dripping down Keshon's face, and I could just see he was like a proud dad. He was like, I got a warrior on my hands. He's such a sicko that he wasn't even like, oh my God, you're bleeding. He's like, thank God you're bleeding. He's going to use that picture down the line. I mean, this is the standard for Cyclone basketball. If you're not drawing blood mid-game, I don't want you on my team. You can hit the portal right now. So I think during the Dayton game, Keshon and TJ, they fell a bit more in love with each other, and it was beautiful to see.
It was. I mean, it's shades of, I think it was George Niang. I want to say, someone's going to correct me. I think it was the North Carolina game in the tournament.
It was.
Where he had blood, or maybe was it the Big 12 tournament?
It was
last-handed. It was March Madness, or was it Big 12?
I believe it was postseason. I don't know if it was conference or March Madness, but I remember he had it dripping.
I know he had blood all over his face.
Yeah, it looked
like he just stepped out of the octagon, and it brought back memories of that. And like you said, I think that is going to be the 2-3 years from now when a point guard goes to the rim soft.
Yeah,
TJ is going to have it printed out on the bench and be like, "This is what you need to be," and it's just going to be Keshon with a broken nose against Dayton, and
it's gonna be a goat body with Keshon's head on it. This is what you need to be,
right?
I'd be like, yes, coach. Yes, I will.
The other thing that Keshon is bordering on right now for me and Nigel, God knows we took a lot of slack for this last year in terms of the best backcourts in Iowa State basketball history. If Taman Lipsey is at full strength and Keshon Gilbert is playing like this, I'm not saying either one of them is the best point guard in Iowa State history, but the combination of both of them on the same team for 2 years in a row is nuts. We are so spoiled right now with the talent we have in our backcourt. And there was another time where Keshon is going full speed, 1-on-3. There were 3 Dayton defenders back there, and the whole time I'm like, slow down. We don't have numbers. Slow down. Nope. Full speed at the rim, drives into 2 dudes, hits a layup, and 1. My God, let it hang, Keshon. Let your chain hang low, because that is onions right there, and that gets me fired up. That shit is awesome. And we the defense looked better against Dayton than it did against Auburn. we might have to talk about this a little bit more. Are you concerned? We kind of talked about the rotations being a step slower this year. I think what we're seeing is I was really complimentary of how big TJ went in the portal. Joshua Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson are huge dudes, and Chatfield's 6'10". The rotations are noticeably slower, and we are finding guys wide open on the 3-point line on the opposite end of the court who have 2 seconds to get a shot off before anyone's even close to them. Is that something that gets cleaned up by the time conference play starts, or is this going to be a problem throughout the year with our personnel?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, the only thing I think you can add to the equation is more effort. Yeah. But naturally, when you go bigger, you get slower. Like you have to trade in one for the other. And I guess in previous years where it was easier to rotate because you had littler guys out there or just more guards, a lot of time too. I remember TJ loved the 4 guards, 1 big ratio, and he seems like he's kind of completely gone away from that now. So again, all like in the past, all defensive rotations have been easier to get out to, but with just bigger guys out there, like Colorado's coach is spot on. We are slow on our feet, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be willing to be aware of that, and you have to overcompensate for it. And closeouts need to be more aggressive. Helpline needs to be more aggressive. Like it needs to be more like be aware where guys are. Like when you're playing Auburn, for example, be aware where Baker Mazzara is, be aware for where Pettiford is, be aware for where Boom is, but like also understand that no one is important until they have the ball. Like you cannot. I don't care who you are. You can be Michael fucking Jordan. If you don't have the ball in your hands, you're not doing anything special to the game. So I think it just has to be more emphasized that effort on closeouts needs to be more aggressive, despite how slow you are. I don't care. But also help defense needs to be attached stronger where you can rotate. And hey, if this guy does get past me, I know I got 3 or 4 dudes behind me who are in the proper rotation to at least stop that initial drive. You know what I mean? But I think too, it's just like I think with effort and a bit more defensive execution and awareness. And again, this I draw back to the complacency. I think in times where you are up to 18, a guy who's slow on his feet is like, I'll be all right. I don't need to go this hard this time. It's like, dog, this is Auburn. You do. Yeah. So I feel like, it's going to be something I feel like it's just kind of a hard lesson you have to learn early. And after that, I feel like we can fix it. So to answer your question, yes, I think it will get better over time. It's just a matter of learning and being self-aware. Hey, we're not that fast when it comes to defensive rotations. So let's try to emphasize and be very aware when it comes to doing so.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like trust, because if you're the guy that is like going over to play help defense and be the guy that's seconding whoever's in the post, and then it's your task to run full speed to the 3-point line, you kind of have to anticipate that ball moving that direction and then trusting, because your back is turned essentially to the entire floor, that the other 4 guys on your team are going to handle their business, because you're basically going out there blind to what's going on behind you, and you just have to close out. I think that's it's like anticipation and trust. You kind of have to know, hey, they're going to try to swing it to the other side where there's no defenders right now, and I got to get my ass over there. I'm hoping that is something that we can clean up, especially if you have a dead-eye shooter on the other side of the court, because I think every team that plays us knows how we play defense from here on out. We're not surprising anyone, doubling guys in the post and basically daring you to throw a cross-court pass, to your wing on the other side. So hopefully that gets cleaned up. Another thing I just want to mention about Dayton, Curtis Jones, nails, 19 points off the bench, 4 for 4 from the charity stripe. We shot 25 for 29 from the free throw line as a team. That's good for 86%. And TJ's teams, they haven't been great 3-point shooting teams, and they haven't been great free throw shooting teams either. And we know Maui, they're soft rims. Hopefully we're not in for a rude awakening when we go back to Hilton and play Marquette. But we looked really good at the charity stripe. And for how physical we play, that is a great thing. Deshaun Jackson was really good from the free throw line all week. And with how good he is at pump faking right under the basket, that's going to be big for us. So I was really encouraged by the free throw shooting all week.
You bring up Deshaun. I have to pull up this tweet. It was hilarious. I've never seen a more accurate tweet in my life about just us as a team in general. But oh my God, they said, what did they say? I'm trying to find it. God, it was so good. Anyway, it was like Iowa State's awesome. They got John Morant.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Please pull it up and please read it verbatim. I need it. I need to hear it again. It was hilarious.
Armando Bacot with working ankles. Ed Reed as a basketball player. It was like some of the best player comps I've ever
heard in my life. It was John Morant. Ed Reed. Armando Bacot with ankles is crazy because I like the second he saw it, I was like, Deshaun reminds me of somebody. I just can't put my tongue on it. And pause. But it's Armando Bacot. It's not just a hair thing either. Like I know they have similar haircuts, but body frame, honestly, game, and just like I think face too. It's just like he literally is Armando Bacot. And again, that's not a diss. I don't like Armando Bacot, but I like Deshaun Jackson. So like I just thought it was hilarious.
All right.
Yeah. Was the Ed Reed reference to Taman?
Yeah.
Okay,
so we had
that's spot on.
Ed Reed on a basketball court, Taman Lipsey, John Morant, Keshon Gilbert, Cheese Curd Dirk. That is phenomenal work.
Dog. Put that guy. Who is that? Give me his username. Put that guy in the Hall of Fame.
We got BJ_Swanee with these player comps. Melvin Ejim Jr., who the first half of Joshua Jefferson against Auburn,
he was
looked
a pro.
the part of Melvin Ejim Jr. And Armando Bacot with ankles.
I told you in the group chat, I was like, in the first half, I was like, Josh Jefferson might go pro. Like, dude is getting to his spots, midi. Getting to his spots, midi. Face up, 3-ball. I was like, oh my God. Are we putting on a clinic? What happened? What did you eat for breakfast?
That first half was beautiful basketball. And let's talk. I've seen a couple people say this. I saw Alex Gukin say it. Taylor Mauser-Burner said it. It felt like the whole tournament was in reverse. It felt like Colorado should have been the first round game.
Yes.
Dayton should have been the semifinal, and Auburn was the championship. Because Colorado ran headfirst into a buzzsaw yesterday, and they just got outclassed, outworked, outplayed, out-hustled, out-talented. It looked like those two teams shouldn't have been on the same court. I was laughing most of the second half.
Yeah.
And that is what this team looks like when we put 40 minutes together. We damn near dropped 100-piece in Maui. No overtime, 40 minutes of regulation basketball, almost dropped 100, and that skyrocketed us. Listen to this, Nigel, and this will shock the old head listeners. On Ken Palm, we have the best offense we have ever had. Better than any Hoieball offense. Better than any offense. We can't look at like the Jamal Tinsley and Marcus Fizer years, but since 2004, 2005, this is the highest we've ever been rated in offense. Better than George Niang, Monte Morris, Matt Thomas, Naz Long, better than all those teams. Blows my mind. But when you put up the amount of points we did in back-to-back-to-back games, it makes sense. We are just looking really good on offense, especially when we can convert points, turnovers to points. And that is what we did the entire game against Colorado.
Well, and two, like it was, first of all, too, to add some body to your Colorado statement, I think the best way to describe that game would basically to be to act it out. This was us in my chair as Colorado. And it was quite simply belt to ass. This was for 40 minutes. Didn't I tell you what happens when you come into the Big 12 and you try to come to Iowa State or Maui and try to come up on us? It's gonna be bad problems. That's what that was. Milan, Cheese Curd, Dirk, all of them. They gave it to him. They gave him the work. They gave him the business, all the goods. But yeah, no. Also, too, wanted to bring this up because we're bringing up stats now. We're going back to like the 2000s. Another interesting fact. I should have brought this up when we were talking about Auburn, but that's my apologies. No one has won a national championship and Maui since 2001. So if you want to bet a future upset, Auburn's at the top of the list. They're not going to win the tournament. So I can take that with a grain of salt. And who knows? Maybe it was better for us not to win Maui because the national champion. Oh, sorry, my dogs are barking. The national champion always never wins Maui. So it's just something to think about. Maybe, who knows? Maybe losing to Auburn was the best thing that ever happened to us. I don't know. But when it comes to Colorado, just the most well-rounded basketball game I've seen in a minute, especially out of this group. Even Taman, who up until the second game, I was like, guys, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation about Taman. And it was before I knew he hurt his shoulder, so it started to make so much sense as to why he was Ben Simmons from 3. But at the end of the day, even in a bad game or like a tournament stretch where he wasn't shooting well, still pulls out 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 10 points. That's all I can ask from you, dog. Even when you can't shoot it, let me see Taman Lipsy. What we can't have are these 8-point, no rebound performances. I don't remember if it was Dayton or Auburn, but there was one game where he had 0 rebounds, and that's unacceptable. And I get it. When you hurt your shoulder, you have a hesitant feeling of getting in the all those bodies and grabbing board. Like, it's just not the first thing your brain wants to do. I get it. But this was just such a well-rounded victory. Keshon could kind of take a back seat. Casual 15 points, but 5 of 8, so efficient as hell. And then Cheese Curd Dirk. Milan Mommy Momcilovic. Dog. He was out there just throwing shit at the rim, and it was going in. It was crazy. I love like how some of his shots, like off the catch, they look so like his jump shots are obviously unorthodox, but I love how like some of them his set shot looks different than his mid range. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like how his legs look more controlled when he's on his set shot, obviously, but when he's off the dribble and it just looks like he's kind of just like jumping unorthodoxly at the rim, it's butter. I've never seen something so ugly yet efficient in my life. It's beautiful. And he was on one. He was just electric from start to finish, especially in the first half. Like, you needed a spark out of someone we hadn't seen yet, and that I feel like it was Milan's coming out party for his sophomore campaign. So again, very proud of that guy, but also Curtis Jones once again, damn near 20 burger off the bench. He's just, he's a pro, man. He's a pro. And how about shout out to Noyes? Quiet 7 points off the bench. Also, almost caught a body against Auburn. Cold ass white boy confirmed. Cold ass white boy.
Yeah, he is still. He'll give you 3 great minutes, and then he'll come off and give you 3 bad minutes. He's just still a little inconsistent. He's learning. There is no lack of confidence in his game. Going to the rim with bad intentions as a freshman in Maui against the best team in the country, you gotta love that. There is some moxie.
Imagine him in 2 years with 15 pounds on him. Dog, he's going to be Corey Kispert at Gonzaga.
It'll be nice. Mm-hmm. Speaking of this Iowa State game, when you put up 99 points, it makes sense that all 5 of your starters end in double digits, plus a 19-piece from Curtis Jones off the bench. This is why I didn't want to harp on Momcilovic too much in that Auburn game while he wasn't out there. What a response. Career high, 24 points. And basically just said, let me show you what I'm about then. Like you said, that turnaround jumper, that will never get old. I think that is going in every single time he shoots it. If he has the ball 15 feet from the basket, a little turnaround over his shoulder, that thing looks good every time it comes off his hands. And that is a beautiful sight. Also, it just has to suck. And I'm glad I'll never know. But when your team plays Iowa State and you're getting cooked by this guy, that just has to be one of the more frustrating things. You can play the best defense you want, and it really doesn't matter. That turnaround jumper is unguardable. Yeah. And that just has to be so frustrating.
Well, it's frustrating because it's like, who is this guy? And then you can't pronounce his name. So it's like, damn it, I can't even be mad at him. He's just
he doesn't look like a killer, but that guy is a killer.
Yeah. He looks like an average man from Wisconsin.
And he will put it on you in a hurry.
Yeah, pause. But yes, he will put it on you.
And like I said, I don't know. I'm not looking at the box score right now. I'm pretty sure we had more than 30 points off of turnovers, and it was just nasty efficient too. Forced 18 turnovers. I want to say we scored 30 plus points off of them. That includes dead ball turnovers. That includes travels. That includes all of it. Shot clock violations. Obviously easier to get a steal, get a quick 2 points, and score that way. But to do it basically every facet and fill it up the way they did, it was just like a perfect exclamation mark. I wonder too if Colorado beat UConn, and Colorado's a good basketball program, but they're not a top 25 team. I think they're around 60s in KenPom right now. So I can understand they beat UConn, they're on top of the world, and then they just ran into a chainsaw. Yeah. And Iowa State was ready. The other player I want to mention for Colorado, Elijah Malone, I think he was D2 Player of the Year last year. He was in hell every time he got double teamed. He had, let me check, 4 turnovers, and it felt like 8. I mean, it looked like every time he got doubled, he was just like, screw it, I don't want the ball anymore, get me out of here, help. And
well, that possession where Milan gets the scoop layup, you know what I'm talking about? It was like Taman tipped it to, I think it was Curtis. No, Curtis got the steal. Taman then grabbed the ball and then tossed it to Milan, and Milan got the scoop. The problem with 4 turnovers against Iowa State, it will be 8 points returned. Like, It'll be an 8-point swing against a team like us. So essentially, yes, you might as well have had 8 turnovers. Like it's that taking care of the ball is so important against us because things like that are going to happen when you got Taman, Pitbull, Lipsy on you, picking up 75% of the court. It's going to be a problem. And yeah, no, you're right. D2, he looked like it. He looks like he might need to go back. So.
I mean, when Brant Chatfield was hitting no-look passes to corner threes, wrap it up.
Come on, bro. White Magic? Who is that?
It was a tough day. Tough day for the Buffaloes. The worst news of it all is they have to play Iowa State 2 more times. And if it goes like it did yesterday, man, good luck. Good luck, Buffaloes. Football school out there in Boulder, because they got worked.
That also scares me, though, because it's like Iowa State's type of team to lose games like that, where they've already played them, kind of go in there lackluster, and then boom, they have some tape on us. Here's what we did wrong. And then, again, it seems like because I believe the next time we play them is at Colorado. We now know when it comes to neutral and both away games, we're terrible at holding leads. So if we get out to a lead, again, I'm not putting this out there, but I could just see it happening where get out to an 18, 22-point spread, and then bada bing, bada boom. Now we're in a neck-and-neck game on the road at Colorado, and they're unranked, and then it's a big deal when they beat us. It's just we have to prevent shit like that from happening this year, because I do think we can go 3-0 against them this year. But again, only time will tell.
I think teams without a true point guard are really going to struggle against Iowa State. And Julian Hammond is probably their point guard, but he's more of a scoring guard. If you don't have someone that can calm down your players out there when you're turning the ball over 30% of your possessions, it's going to be really tough to come back and try to win a game where your offense is basically just handing points over to the other team. So that's the one thing. I think Colorado is just not really built to beat Iowa State, and I can eat crow on that. If I'm wrong, I'll put my hand up, and I'll own that. Speaking of being wrong, Dan Hurley. Nigel, you are a man that has words to say about Dan Hurley. I tend to like hothead coaches. I'm a big Tom Izzo guy. Dan Hurley, I think, is a bridge too far. Just the floor is yours. Give me some Dan Hurley take.
So my take on Dan Hurley, first of all, I don't know if you guys caught on to my UConn burnout theory from our last episode, but it can never be truer than what it is right now. UConn's burnt out. They're a little hungover from the 2 natty rings, and Dan Hurley in year 3, I think, has lost himself. I don't know. I forgot his last name, but Graham B something. He's a journalist. He does like sit down hour-long interviews with like really, really successful people. Does a lot of athletes. He's done Coach K, Calipari, the whole nine. Sits down with Dan Hurley, and I'm starting to understand a lot of his psyche. First of all, the guy, and this is no joking matter, but I'm connecting dots and it's making a lot more sense. He's very emotionally unstable. Like when it comes to the 40 minutes outside of a basketball court, he opened up of how since a kid, like he's had imposter syndrome. He's always been compared to Bobby. Bobby was better than him for years at a time. They had to live with his dad. I don't know if you've seen YouTube clips of his dad coaching. He's worse than Dan when it comes to getting on people. So imagine the standard he was holding to his own sons. So just like you can just see a lot of childhood trauma laying on that guy's chest every day that he's out there trying to coach a game. But yeah, man, he really showed his ass in Maui. Like he might as well just moon the camera. He was showing his ass that bad. But my problem with him is just like I think through all the like success and how you can continue to make this about your guys and the current team you're coaching right now, I think he's just kind of made it about himself. Like it just seems like it was more of a ding-a-ling swinging contest more than let's go out there and try to win some competitive basketball games. Like he was out there. I remember when they took the first game to OT, calling the ref a bitch ass.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing, dude? Like in that moment when you were down 10 for most of that game and then you muscle through and come back and push to overtime, there's not the time to be talking shit. Like you need to get back into your huddle, corral your guys because you got some freshmen out there and some last year bench players now playing starter minutes who haven't been used to this type of environment. You need to corral your current team. And again, he lost the vision. But yeah, no, I think Dan Hurley is very mentally unstable and the brother needs help. Like he 0-3. That's another problem that I think can be fixed down the line. But again, helped Iowa State because I think with losing only to Auburn and then having two very convincing wins later on, I think we get bumped in the rankings now with UConn being 2, taking a dip. I forgot who else lost yesterday. Gonzaga lost yesterday. Yeah. So Iowa State's going to take a bit of a bump, I believe. But nonetheless, I feel like Dan Hurley has successfully burnt out his program. And I'm not saying it's the death of UConn basketball. I don't want to ever, jump to that many conclusions. But at the end of the day, dog, be better. Be better for your team. Be better for yourself, man. Like, you look like a child out there. And why he had such a long leash up until this point is crazy because he's been doing antics like that for the last 10 years. Like, I remember they beat Syracuse one time in like a really mid, non-ranked game. And he was so hyped with one of his teammates. First of all, gave him a high five. That's normal. But then he slaps him. Like, out of just, it's like, dog, I get you're excited, but don't touch my face. Like, yeah. He's crazy. And I just think crazy, he has a fire to him that can heat up a building or it can burn it down. And right now, UConn's building is being burnt down and they got to fix it. But yeah, like I said, Dan Hurley got some self-reflection to do. His therapist is going to be making great money this fucking holiday season.
The thing that rubbed me wrong about Dan Hurley, besides all of it, I think what rubbed me wrong the most is he didn't say it, and I think he should have. He lost them the game against Memphis. Getting a technical in the last minute of the game, you just got to keep your mouth shut. And he was doing it all game. I think it's kind of messed up the refs gave him the technical when they did because you could have given him one almost every minute of the basketball game. But then in the post game, to take zero accountability and still throwing the refs under the bus, you're a leader of young men. And if the coach isn't taking accountability, why the hell would any of your players take accountability after a bad loss when their leader is just blaming it on the refs? At that point, you have to say, hey, right hand up. I put us in a bad situation. I feel so bad for my guys who put it all out there. And I made it about me, and I shouldn't have done that. That is it is just as simple as coach speak layup. Even if you don't believe it, that is what you have to say because your players are reading what you're saying. They're hearing it from their friends, their family. What's going on with Coach Hurley? And you're like, hey, man, I don't know, but if he wants to be the center of attention, the eyes are off us. I'm gonna do whatever I want. Like that is how these guys are gonna start to think. And he's got to fix that in a hurry because UConn, I still think super talented, has a lot of good pieces. It's crazy to me that they went 0-3. It's like they didn't lose to a murderer's row. They lost to Memphis, Colorado, and Dayton, who going into the tournament were probably looked at as the 3 worst teams out of the 8. So a tough vacation for UConn.
Well, and that's the thing, dude. UConn has had this problem where they've had this like the world is it's us against the world complex, which we've had arguments about this. I will stand on this. UConn is a blue blood when it comes to it. When it comes to recruiting, when you're neck and neck with Duke, with Cooper Flagg, come on. You're up. Like Iowa State never had a chance at Cooper Flagg, despite how electric that would have been. Like it was never even a chance. It was a girl that was way out of our league, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, like the standard that UConn has been at since 1999, to think that all of their championships, they've won 6 national titles, all in the 21st century for the most part, outside of the 99.
All in my lifetime.
Yeah. Like as long as Dylan's been alive, UConn's been winning. And Dan Hurley has the audacity, even before this year, to have this victim like complex of like, why aren't we getting media coverage? We're doing this and this and this. Like he was talking about this like a few seasons ago. He said this in the sit-down interview I watched. It baffles me that he constantly finds excuses about something to be mad about. And it's like, now you get to a point where I think just players, him, like you're burnt out, dude. You're burnt out. And I need like, they need to just genuinely do some self-reflection as a program. Cause you can see them. They don't do a good job at hiding their emotions. I know a lot of people like TJ are able to kind of just stay even keeled during the game, even when they don't agree with the call. You know, they kind of just bite their tongue. They let it hang out. They wear their emotions on their sleeve. I can respect that. But at the end of the day, at bad times like this, it's so obvious to the public, like you guys are having a terrible go of it. Like scoreboard aside, there's bigger problems, you know? And I think the biggest problem is like through all of this success, it's now become the Dan Hurley show. And no one turns on the TV to watch Dan Hurley. I'm sorry. Like we want to see your team. If you have something to say after the game, cool. But the antics have got to stop. Otherwise, this season's going to be catastrophic for the Huskies. It's going to be bad.
Nigel, you brought him up, so I'm going to bring it up. Cooper Flagg, the streets are saying, I don't know if he's got that Mamba mentality. He seems to shy away in the last 2 minutes of a game.
No, here's the problem.
Are we raising alarms? You got Auburn coming to town real soon. Are we talking scary hours for Duke? What's the mindset of a Dookie Blue Devil?
First of all, that game, yes, it is. Scary hours are coming to Cameron Indoor. I'm not going to try to deny that. But also, Iowa State has their own battle on December 4th in the Marquette Golden Eagles. So let's not sleep. We also have to be prepared that day as well. Cam Jones is the second coming of Isaiah Brockington, and we need to be tuned in and locked in. But to your point, Cooper Flagg, the question should not be, does he shy away? I think he's not shying away enough. I don't think the game time, like game deciding possessions, I don't necessarily think with his bag at this level, the ball doesn't need to be in his hands. When you got guards that are shooting the ball at the clip of Tyrese Proctor, the guy's shooting 50% from 3 this year. The ball has to be in our guards' hands. And I'm saying the ball needs to be in the Duke guards' hands. It's that simple. I think we've seen it enough 2 times on a national stage. He does that weak-ass spin move. And when you play 23-year-olds who have been in college since the Prohibition, they tend to catch on to that because they're senior citizens and they've kind of seen everything. Nothing Cooper Flagg has done except dunk on, I forgot their backup center, but it was crazy. Pick and roll with Concanipple body. It was electric. I screamed like a little girl. But I just feel like Shire has to do a bit better at end of game execution. But nonetheless, very, very proud of the effort of like Kentucky was not a young Kentucky. They weren't the one and done. They're a BYU-esque Kentucky now, where you got 4-5-year seniors on that team. Same with Kansas. Their entire starting lineup is my age. Guys, I've been out of college for 2 years. I'm in the workforce. I am in corporate America. When will these kids get jobs? I've seen enough. It gets to a point where you just get tired of seeing Hunter Dickinson's stupid long neck face out there on the basketball court. I cannot take it anymore. And then he's out here kicking people? Dog, take up rec league soccer if you want to do that. Come on. But to answer your question, I just think end of game execution needs to be a bit better. I don't think this is a team that's going to be killing people like the Zion RJ team where, you're going out and just steamrolling dudes, winning every game by 20 points. Again, the ACC is a joke this year. I think the only other competition in that league is Carolina. But again, we'll see. Auburn is the last test for the Blue Devils for a long time, given the weakness of the ACC. So it's going to be a great test. And who knows? I think Auburn might be feeling themselves a bit coming into Cameron Indoor. I don't know if you win Maui. Again, burnout comes in different shapes, forms for every team during the season. Who knows? Maybe the Blue Devils with the Cameron Crazies behind them, they might be able to throw Auburn off the rhythm. And who knows? As Iowa State fans, we should be rooting for that because when Auburn loses and we keep winning and say we beat Marquette, we move up. See how that works? Yep. So I know Iowa State fans usually don't like the Duke Blue Devils, but on December 4th, I would highly suggest rooting for them because it's only going to do us a favor, especially if we beat Marquette.
Yeah, Iowa State, you get back from Maui, guess what's on your plate? Marquette coming to town. So it doesn't stop. The ball keeps moving. The world keeps spinning. I said before that I think Maui's only a success if we beat Auburn, North Carolina, or UConn. None of that happened. However, we lost a heartbreaker to Auburn, and then I think we responded as great teams respond. You gut one out against Dayton, and then you just put Colorado on a highlight reel and take care of business. So going into Marquette, you got a bunch of momentum. We know that we can play with anyone, and I don't think this team is scared of a name or a number in front of a team. So let's play some basketball, man. I love this team. I want to see the defense get better. I want to see Tamin Lipsey, get healthy and look like the Tamin Lipsey of yesteryear. And then I think watch out because we look like we just took Auburn, 12 rounds in a boxing match. And I really think we can play with the best of them this year.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. That was a Final Four game. Okay. Yeah. And as fans, I have one question, one request. When we do, or if we do lose a game like Auburn ever again, please, I hate when guys try to be different and devil's advocates on social media and talk about great game though. Yeah, we know. We watched it. Like, you cannot be like, oh yeah, my prom date left me, but great dance though. Great dance. Just happy to show up, man. Happy we tied our shoes today. That was expected. You want to win. I want to win. Have you seen Nacho Libre?
It's been years. It's been over a decade.
The movie. He's like, He's like, I don't get paid to lose. I want to win. Like that. That is, oh my God. I've never felt a movie quote so hard in my life. We cannot have that loser mindset anymore. Okay. Iowa State we've upgraded in class when it comes to basketball. We need to act like it going forward. Okay. We are the standard. We've set a new standard. We cannot think about, oh, we're just happy to be in these big game environments. No, like we're supposed to win these big game environments. This is one of the best teams, arguably, we've seen in maybe 25, 20 years. So let's please, moving forward, let's act like it. I never want to see as many grass is greener on the other. Like, no, we should have beat Auburn. We should have beat Auburn at the end of the day. Again, the fact that we didn't win Maui, who knows? That might mean bigger success down the road. But again, like I always say, time will tell. Excuse me. And like you said, let's play some basketball because I'm excited. Marquette is in for a rude awakening. Shaka Smart does not like games.
we went a little long.
Yeah.
But it's feast week. I don't know what more you can expect from us. Yeah, just a great week in Maui. Great basketball. All right, Nigel, happy Thanksgiving. Thankful that we got this pod going. Always a pleasure talking to you. Anything you want to say to the Let 'Em Cook people before we get out of here?
I think I'll just leave with this statement. Again, if people are going to complain about the time we took today to talk about a heavy feast week, you can't complain about what's on your plate when your plan was to eat. And here at Let 'Em Cook, we eat. Let's go. Let 'Em cook. Thanks for tuning in, people. Happy Thanksgiving.